Sixth grade, welcome to Science on Thursday. We're taking on lesson 3 today. In your science book, if you have your book open, you can see you're on page 38. Looks like what is done on my screen. Hopefully you have your piece of paper to fill in your notes as we work through a few things today. So we've been talking about cells all week. Yesterday we took on the different organelles of a cell and what they do for us, from the nucleus that controls it to the endoplasmic reticulum, which transports to the cytoplasm, the fluid that holds it, the membrane that gives it its shape and allows things in and out, the mitochondria, the powerhouse, converts the energy into usable form for us. Lysosomes break things down, ribosomes build proteins, vacuoles store things. We talk about the difference between plants and animals. There's 3 differences. Plant cells have one large vacuole, animals many small ones. Plants have chloroplasts, which contain chlorophyll, which gives you photosynthesis, and then also a plant has a cell wall. We ended yesterday talking about diffusion, moving material into and out of a cell based on trying to get it equal on both sides. Today we're going to talk about why they grow in the process called mitosis, and keeping that straight with what we're going to be talking about with cell division. So mitosis is part of cell division. Cell division is getting 2 new cells. The question is, how do cells grow and divide? And it says, as multicellular organisms grow in size, their cells increase in number. New cells also form to replace old and damaged cells. Cells make new cells through the process of mitosis and cell division. Okay, so we make new cells through cell division. Part of cell division is mitosis. Mitosis, you're going to learn over here, is the process of just dividing the cell nucleus. So how do we copy the nucleus? That's mitosis. How do we copy the rest of it? That's cell division, guys. Okay, so we're going to keep those 2 things straight as we work our way through that. Here we go. All living things, no matter how large or how small, are made of cells. Some cells are long and narrow, like nerve cells. Some are thin and flat. Others are round. Some cells, such as a red blood cell, are actually even donut-shaped. I kind of like the word bowl-shaped. Donut sounds like there's a hole in the middle of it that it can fall right through. Red blood cells are normally pictured more like a bowl. They hold the oxygen in there. But when it comes to size, all cells are similar. They are small. So different shapes, guys, but they're all small. Okay, and we just need to understand our definition of small is usually microscopic when we talk about those things at that level, but they all come in different shapes. You'll need that on your worksheet. Keep that in mind. To understand why cells are small, think about a cell's needs. Once again, lesson 3, we're still going through what it means to be a cell and alive. To stay alive, a cell must take in oxygen, it must absorb food somehow, and it must release waste. These materials and others must move through all parts of the cells. Okay, so there's your blank over here. To stay alive, I need to get this material to every part of the cell. Throughout the cells, materials constantly move between the cell membrane and the organelles. Material also move from organelle to organelle. Okay, so mitochondria moves it to the nucleus, things like that, and from outside to inside, diffusion from yesterday. As a cell gets larger, the trip from the cell membrane to other cell parts gets longer. A particle of sugar would have to travel farther in a large cell than in a small cell. Waste, too, would have to travel farther to get out and exit the cell. If a cell grew too large, fill in your blank for number 3, material would not be able to move fast enough throughout the cell for life functions to continue. If that happened, the cell would die. Okay, now guys, I keep talking about cells getting larger and larger. Please understand this is still microscopic, so I don't want you to think of some horror movie where we got this big, huge cellular blob going around, something crazy like that. It's just, they're super small, but they're obviously going to grow. So the bigger it is, the farther you have to travel, and it just can't do that, okay? And so it has to divide. Now I want to go over here, guys, to the side so that you understand it. As a cell gets larger, it needs more food and produces more waste. During growth, both the cell membrane and the organelles within it get larger, but the volume of the materials inside the cell grows faster than the surface area, the area of the cell membrane. Sooner or later, there isn't enough cell membrane to allow enough materials in and out of the cell. To see how this works, we're going to do math. Look at this diagram. The total amount of material inside the 8 smaller cells is equal to the amount of the large cell. But which has more surface area, the 8 smaller cells or the large one? So guys, let's do volume. Remember, volume is length times width times height. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Okay? Down here, we got to divide into 8. So these guys aren't 2 by 2s. These are little 1 by 1s. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, but there's 8 of them. So 1 times 8 is 8. So they're saying if you take this thing and you chop it into 8 pieces, the volume is the same. How many organelles I have the same. Now we got to figure out surface area. Surface area is length times width. So 2 times 2, that's 4. How many sides on a cube? There are 6 sides on a cube. So 6 times 4 is 24. So this thing has the surface area of 24 cubic centimeters, which means material can come into that cell from 24 surface centimeters. Okay, now let's go down here. Remember, these guys were divided into 1 by 1s. So I take 1 times 1 and I get 1. There's still 6 sides. So 1 times 6 is 6. So each little guy has a surface area of 6, but I have 8 of them. 8 times 6 is 48. So what we're saying here is same volumes, 24 square centimeters of surface area, 48 squares of surface area. So why do we divide cells? So that we have enough surface area to get material in. Material only needs to travel a little bit, and here material would have to travel much farther. And so that's what they're trying to get at. Let's go over here and answer our question. Cells divide so that one large cell has the same volume as 8 smaller cells, but the 8 smaller cells have more surface area. Therefore, it can get in more material. That is a key concept they want you getting from this. All right, let's move on to cell division. If cells can only get so large, how do organisms grow? Single-celled organisms divide into 2 new cells when they get too large. So on this one-celled algae we talked about in lesson 1, when I split, 1 becomes 2, they start smaller, and that's the way they move on. For multicellular organisms, its cells must also divide into 2 new cells. Each cell will be a copy of the old cell. As the new cells form, the organism grows larger. Cell division also makes new cells to replace old cells that are damaged or worn out. So guys, right now, your bodies, for many of you, are making new cells faster than the old ones are wearing out. That's why some of you get taller. Okay? For me, I haven't grown taller in a long time. I've grown wider, but not taller. Okay, so if this is about the same pace, you're growing, you're making new cells about the same way you're replacing old ones, then you stay about the same. Okay, so what it's getting at, guys, is cells in your body are constantly dying, and we're constantly making new ones. All right, moving on, number 6 in your notes. Cell division begins with mitosis. Mitosis is the process in which the cell nucleus divides. The cell's nucleus contains DNA. What's DNA? Number 7. DNA is a material that stores coded information about how an organism will grow and develop. The cell needs this information to make proteins which control chemical reactions in the cell. Usually you don't see the DNA in cells. They're so small that we can't see them even with microscopes. However, when mitosis begins, DNA coils tightly to form bodies called chromosomes. Okay, a chromosome is that coiled thing. So I wrote down your definition from chromosome. I went to the back of the book in the glossary to give you this definition. It wasn't really given to you here completely. You can see that the cell's chromosomes as rod-shaped structures like those in the photo above. So guys, this is a chromosome. It looks like this right here. As you unwind these chromosomes, you get this DNA ladder that we will study later on. Okay, so please understand, guys, these are pretty drawings. These are not real-life microscopic pictures. So what I'm trying to stress here, cell division is making 2 new cells. Part of cell division is mitosis. They spell it out for you on the next page. Every species has a specific number of chromosomes. which are found in pairs inside the cell. You got number 9 in your blank. So humans, you're going to learn, have 46 chromosomes. Other things have more or less chromosomes, but it is unique to those things. So we each have a specific number. That doesn't mean that there's not another living thing out there that has 46. It just means humans have 46. We have a certain number of chromosomes. You don't want more or less of those. When we do, we have problems that come along with that. So Down syndrome is a disease where you have a 47th chromosome. So something goes wrong with the chromosomes and it switches out and it causes a disease in humans. Okay. Chromosomes contain a cell's operating instructions. That's also a number 9 there. That'll help you on your worksheet. So it's no surprise that a cell must have a full set of chromosomes to function properly. Mitosis ensures that each cell gets the right chromosomes in the right number. Each nucleus in the resulting cells will receive a complete set of chromosomes if it works out perfectly. Mitosis is often described in stages, but it's really a continuous process. That's number 10 over here in your notes, guys. So we like to say, let's study step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's not like step 1 and then stop, and then step 2 and then stop. It's literally non-stop going. Cells are growing and dividing in a continual process. Each stage moves smoothly into the next. When mitosis is finished, the cytoplasm of the cell divides and then they continue on. So here we go, guys. We're going to work ourselves around in this beautiful circle where we start with 1 cell, we end in 2 cells. This in red and ABC is mitosis. Yellow and purple is cell division. So I'm starting with a cell. Number 1, cell gets ready to divide. First, the cell copies its DNA. Then the DNA becomes thread-like strands, what we call chromatin. So you can see these little thread-like strands here. This is not mitosis yet, guys. This is a cell growing, copying its DNA. Good. Now mitosis starts. Short, compact chromosomes become visible. I can literally see these things under a microscope now. You see that? This is a microscope picture of a cell with its chromosomes dyed red so that you can see them. The membrane around the nucleus dissolves. So the nuclear membrane dissolves. Step 1. Step 2. These pairs of chromosomes line up at the center of the cell. Line up at the center of the cell. Okay? So this would be them lining up here. This would be more step 2 pictured here. Now step 3. Each pair of chromosomes then separate apart. So you can see these things kind of get like chopped in half, guys. The 2 halves move to opposite ends of the cell. Each half is now an independent chromosome. So the pairs separate, the halves move to opposite ends in the cell. You see that pictured there and dyed as it goes, dyed red there, as it gets pulled apart. Then step 4 down here, the chromosomes uncoil to become chromatin again. A new membrane forms around each nucleus. This is not a new cell, guys. These are simply 2 nucleuses. Mitosis is done. You see that pictured here. Now, guys, look right here. It's still just 1 cell that has 2 nucleus. Now we go to step 3. This is not mitosis. This is cell division. The cytoplasm divides. In animals, the cell membrane pinches inward in the middle, forming 2 identical cells. In plants, a new cell wall divides one plant into a second one. So now, guys, step 3 would be if this cell membrane pinched off right here and you created cell 1 and cell 2. That's cell division. I started with 1 cell, I ended with 2 cells. Which I think is misleading here is you have these 2 things which are supposed to be just the nucleus and then they look the same here. So just be careful of the trick questions. Mitosis ends when you have 2 new cells. False. Mitosis ends when you have 2 nucleus, what we call nuclei. Okay, not when we have new cells. That's cell division, guys. So just be careful as I go through that. Now, guys, inside cells, a lot of time you have those organelles, and there's many of them that they have to chop off. Okay, so if I was a plant cell with that big vacuole, that vacuole would get chopped in half, and you'd have one in each one, and that would grow and get bigger. Now, as this guy forms this new cell, he's instantly going to move into this stage. He's going to start copying his DNA, and then boom, this process continues. New cell, chops its size in half, grows, gets big, and this is just constantly happening. In humans, guys, this takes about 20 minutes. Depending on your science book, and when you move on in science, you'll get some science books have more stages than this. In other words, we did it in 4 here. Some do it in 5, some do it in 6. Science books will give fancy names for these phases instead of stages. Your book calls them stages. Most science book calls them phases, and they have names for those that you'll learn in the future. Okay. Blessings on your worksheet. 6th grade, usually at the end of the chapter we have that fun little math and science and an experiment. The experiment this time deals with messing with iodine. In 10 years, it has never worked in the 6th grade classroom passing through it. So I don't know if I have really old iodine or too good of plastic bags. And then the math and science is something we're not going to do. So tomorrow, we're done with Chapter 2, and we're going to take a test in Chapter 2. Feel free to use your notes from this week to help you, and feel free to use your book as you work through that test. Remember on tests, guys, where it says use a separate sheet of paper, you don't need to do that. Blessings.